Hello, everybody. Just a minute. Okay. What is happening?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Xtra Bytes. And today we had a very strange situation, and somehow we have managed to. Looks like now it's going to be all right. And we in India are used to the outages, and but today it happened in US for some strange reason. So luckily for us that the light came right in the nick of time. So he is online with us. So okay, so welcome to another episode of Extra Bytes, and today we have another wonderful photographer, Indian from US. Right now, SHASHANK Khanna. Now, honestly speaking, the moment you look at his work, you start getting a feeling that what is this? Is he a landscape photographer, or is he a landscape macroscape photographer, or is he a visual artist? I have been trying to figure out, so I'll have some questions for him in due course of time. And today we have a lot of people joining us on YouTube as well. So let us first introduce our panelists. So we have Prakash Kumar Singh from Dubai. We have Himadri. We have Sandeep Mathur. We have Som, and we have Atanu. Now, Atanu, switch on your video, man. Switch on. Okay, now, so giving you a brief introduction about Shashank. Shashank, first of all, welcome to this session, and thank you for accepting our invite to be on this session, to be the speaker. And I hope this session is going to be a wonderful session for all of us, including you. Now, talking about him, giving you a brief introduction about him. The good thing about him that I liked the most was, apart from being that he's a good photographer, is that he grew up in Delhi. So हमारी अपनी दिल्ली से हैं. And he studied architecture. He completed his master's design from IIT Bombay. IITN, मतलब सोच के देखो यार. And he was in Bangalore for 3 years. And then he moved to US in 2013. So it's been, I think, 7 years for him being in the US. And he's an avid landscape photographer and a professional user experience designer. So we are getting into too many designers who've turned photographers. He's, I think, still pursuing his job, and we will have questions regarding that also. And so you can find him losing himself in the field, carefully scanning smaller details and gasping at the great dramatic scenes. He likes to bring forward his artistic vision in the photographs that may elevate a viewer's experience of that place. And we all can, I think, vouch for that. And so he has been widely published. And today we are privileged to have him here to listen to his story. How did he get into photography while he entered IIT, or before that, or after he went to US? So let the story unveil, and without wasting much time, over to Shashank and take us through your journey and inspiring journey.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored. I don't know how you guys discovered my work, but it is a pleasure. And, the kind of photographers and the genres and, the inspiration that the whole team has been, accumulating here and sharing with the world. It's just wonderful. And, I saw the talk by Dinesh Khanna, sir, and I've been a fan of his work since I was a kid. I used to see his work in India Today magazine when I was studying in school, and the whole Incredible India campaign. And, when I got to learn that, this is the same platform where I am supposed to speak. Uh, as I wrote, in one of my Facebook introductions, I feel like an infant with camera in my hand, the kind of speakers that you already have. So I'm really thankful, a lot of gratitude for bringing me here and allowing me to share my work, share my artistic philosophy, share where I am in my photographic journey right now. And it's a long road. It is a very creatively enriching road, but I'm really enjoying it. And I have prepared a small presentation.
Yeah.
I can probably walk through, some of the work that I have, how I got started. And just before I get started, I just wanted to have two more elements of personal notes here. First of all, yes, Delhi, Sadi Delhi. So I think Delhi lives in the heart, and you cannot take that out of me.
Yeah.
So for me, it's everything, started there. And even my photographic journey, I will talk about how Delhi has been the most instrumental element for me, to become a creative professional. And the other part is, I found out an interesting connection with Som. We may have crossed our paths in past because both my Yahoo offices and Goldman Sachs office were in the same EGL campus in Bangalore, and really interesting pubs and restaurants nearby. So maybe, so if I saw you there, hi.
In retrospect, yes.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, great. So I will not take much time. I'll start sharing the screen. Okay, it says keynote. Perfect. I need to give some system preference settings here. Let's see. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. So I picked up the title that you had in your introduction, Dreamscapes. I don't know how you figured it out, but scapes is something that I always use to name my folders. Either it is studioscapes, soundscapes, imagescapes, landscapes, of course, right? And then you had this Dreamscape. So I thought this is the perfect title that I can use for my presentation today. And let's get started from there. Okay, so I am Shashank Khanna, and hello everybody, and thank you once again for having me here. This is one of the photographs that a friend of mine actually clicked, Kanuj, and being in my element, enjoying the snow. I think winter is one of the most favorite times for me to shoot. I look forward to winter every year for the clearing storms and the intimate scenes that are possible. And I think this represents me very well, with my photographic passion. And as a quick introduction, I grew up in New Delhi. I was born there. Majority of my life, I have lived there. And as I was saying, Delhi has played a very big part in my creative evolution. And I would remember, as a kid, as a very small, like a middle-aged, mid-school kind of kid, I was very shy, kind of introvert, and very silent kind of person. And one of the things that I really used to enjoy is I would just look out of the window and I will just see, what is happening outside, how things are interacting with each other, what is sky doing, the interactions between the rich and the poor, the cultural part of Delhi versus the modern part of Delhi, the socialite part of Delhi versus, because our school, so I studied at Balbharti, Pitampura, and they had very strong cultural programs there. So, there was a very strong socialite kind of connect in the school. So, some sort of artistic flair was coming through that. And this is one of the photographs that I had taken from minaret of Jama Masjid. I'm sure many folks from Delhi will be familiar with this. And this pretty much represented that set of feeling for me, just looking outside at the world, and there are so many frames possible. You can probably just compose a shot or, a scene with sun and that jali, or, like just look into the streets, look at the people, look at the buildings, and, how the scene in itself, as the hazy sunsets of Delhi, happen, the whole sky lights up, and how the feelings evolve with that. So I think that was something which was very meaningful to me, and I took that element of that observation and seeing something and trying to convey it in slightly different manner, either through paintings or through maybe so I was an engineering drawing student, and using that as a method to kind of translate my creativity or thought process into something more tangible. And that is something that really took me further into my creative journey. I studied architecture immediately after school, and then I even went for my master's in design. So it was almost 7 years of design education for me. And one very strong element for me in architecture was conservation. And I was interning at INTAC. INTAC is the Indian National Trust for Art, Culture and Heritage. And we were working on this project of conserving Lodi 2. And this is one of the photographs from that part. And I think on the left-hand side, you can see a small circle. I was actually mapping out and, drawing each and every detail of that historical structure, the Bada Gumbad Mosque and Lodi Gardens, right? And, seeing the light coming through in evening. By the way, this is not really like a sunlight. It's the haze in Delhi's sky, and the light is through the tungsten or the halogen bulbs outside, which looks like, a big beam coming in. But this is a really old photograph. And back then my style was not really landscapes that much, but it was being in India, exposed to many different kind of elements, very rich elements, dances and street views and vendors and historical structures. It was a lot about very basic scenes, not really basic I should say, but more of intimate scenes with the surroundings around me, the abundance of different situations and scenarios. And by that time I had no clue about camera settings or whatnot. I got my first DSLR and I was finishing my architecture thesis. I think that was 2008. And for first 2 years, I think I literally had very less clue of what all settings I need to use. I used to mess up a lot of photographs. The first photograph that you see, which is slightly blurred, is just that I didn't know the settings, but I really loved, that motion blur that kind of came through it. And at that time, I was not even using Photoshop that much. I was using Picasa as one of the editing tools, the Google Picasa software. So, I mean, many of these frames and that the style of connecting with the subject is something that was becoming a bit more natural to me. Skills part is something I think that evolved a bit later for me, but just looking at a scene, trying to see it in a different way and trying to convey it in a slightly elevated way is something which was becoming a second habit for me. And design as a profession is also such that you're looking at something and you're trying to improve it constantly. So that is the same philosophy that I take forward in photography as well. If I see a scene, even if it's a branch or it's the light falling on a leaf or something, I'll try to interpret it in my way. I'll try to present it in a way where it is something beyond that. It is something beyond the realism. It's something takes you to like the dreamscapes. Okay, so. As I moved to California in 2013, that is when the surroundings around me changed a little bit. I still had that creative quest, but it was no longer those street scenes or the old and the new. It was everything. It's just American. The biggest thing that was there in abundance is nature. There's coast nearby, there's Yosemite nearby, there's like sand dunes nearby, and we have a particular stretch of road where you can be on sand dunes in the morning at Death Valley National Park. You can be skiing in the afternoon in 3 to 3.5 hour drive in the Mammoth and Eastern Sierra area, and then you can be at the beach in the evening. So, and that is just wonderful, right? And that is when my love for nature began, and I started getting much more interested about taking photographs of nature. And initially, it was a lot about the way I think most of us get started, long exposures, black and whites, and taking a lot of different kind of photographs at different angles, a lot of weird stuff as well. There was a lot of enthusiasm, but what was missing was probably the ability to represent it in the right way, or in more of a disciplined way. It was like, I'll just take a photograph, or I'll take 100 photographs, same evening I'll come back, I'll try to edit them, and I would like to post it, get through the rush and enjoy that part. But I think over a period of time, that artistic evolution has strengthened in me, and it's become a bit more sensitive. Now I take a lot of time with my work. I let it sit. I edit it multiple times. I just try to keep refining it. And essentially what I have understood with the whole process of photography is, and it's just my personal interpretation, essentially what is happening is I'm learning to see, and I'm learning to see finer details. I'm learning to see colors. I'm learning to see compositions. And that is something that is constantly happening with me in my journey. And when I started, in 2013, looking at landscapes versus what I do today, I think things have gone a little better. I still see, in my work, and I think in some of the photographs I can point out the things that I do not like, and I would like to, improve further. So maybe there is versions of different photographs that can come up. Is there any question before I get to the photographs?
I have a question. You were in Delhi, and so you were shooting streets, mostly
Yes.
streets of monuments, the way we shoot almost every Delhiite. I think the photographer's dream is going to Qutub Minar, going to going to Humayun's tomb, and all these tombs where the burials have taken place. And if you are a street photographer, then you go to Chandni Chowk, and then you move to US, and you were suddenly surrounded by the beautiful landscape and the way you explain. So your first thought was whether you were missing all those monuments and those lights that you were showing, or you said, this is what my calling is, and I have to get on with what I'm seeing now.
That's a brilliant question. And interestingly, I was not very serious about landscapes when I started doing that thing. I had a DSLR. It was a very basic Canon 400, EOS 400D, the entry line DSLR. And at one point, I had stopped enjoying that camera, and mirrorless was just coming in. And I still remember I went with a friend of mine. We went to a store in Palo Alto here, and unfortunately, that store is now closed.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, absolutely.
Easier so viewer can relate actually.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I told him, hey, you know what? I'll just take this mirrorless camera. It's Fuji X-T1. It's a very basic camera. I do not know at this point what my interest is. Let's see if my interest develops further, I'll probably buy a better camera. And I just picked up a 1855 lens. I picked up the crop sensor Fuji X-T1, and once I started using it, and once I started experimenting with the landscapes here, I think it took just almost a month for me to take some photographs, and I got hooked. I probably never looked back. Then every weekend, whenever I get opportunity, even like say if there's one day where I have some light work, it's not a lot, I'll just go out and I'll try to take photographs. I'll go to the coast and I'll try to do a lot of guesswork of how the weather is forming and whatnot. And fortunately for me, in Bay Area, there is a very strong community of photographers. I think that has played a wonderful part in my growth as a landscape photographer. So I'm part of something called Escape. Escape is, there's a person named Jeff Lewis. He's a weather forecaster, and he specially forecasts weather for photographers. So he has built these models where he's like 2 days in advance we have a heads up of we're going to have a major blow up, and which regions we're going to have a major blow up and all that. So I got into that. It's a kind of 100 people community in Bay Area, and through that I started connecting with people. So the present circle that I have of photographers and really good friends, it all happened through that. So like picked up the camera, started shooting, loving it, got into this community, and it just became a natural evolution for me. Now this is the most active discussion that keep happening. It's my second nature now, landscapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have escaped from the monuments to the lands.
Kinda. I mean, I absolutely have a dream project for monuments. If I ever, take an opportunity, take a 3-month sabbatical or something, I want to shoot Indian monuments in the night light. I want to shoot them with, the moonlight or the starlight, because all of these things have been shot so widely in daylight. They're like the tourist spots or the postcards. But very few shots have happened in, other challenging lights and other astronomical kind of situations. And I think this is one of the dreams that I carry forward, and I want to take a break. I want to get back to India, do that project, probably publish a book or exhibit somewhere, but I think it'll happen.
That's great. Just one small part again. While you were in India before you moved to US, or maybe in Delhi, and you had been in Bangalore before moving to US, what was your calling in terms of photography? Was it still getting random only, or you had started focusing on some particular genre?
No, I think it was very random. Honestly, it was. I rarely ever used tripod. I was just hand holding and clicking, and it was mostly 50 mm kind of shots, and playing with bokeh, and maybe taking photograph of a leaf with a softer background or people, or like reflections. You can also see here, like there are 2 shots which are reflections, and there's 1 shot which is completely out of focus. So it was, I think, just that moody, and maybe a consistent element, which was the stylistic element of having that mood, a dreamy kind of mood in the photograph. Then it was not really like documentary photography or landscape photography or anything. And I think I had a trip to Northeast for one of the New Year parties, and we visited some waterfalls there. Now when I look back at those waterfalls, the photographs I took, I don't want to look at those photographs anymore. But I mean, there is still other content that I really like looking at. So I think it was kind of random. It was not landscape for sure.
All right. Yeah, I think we can move ahead with the images, and then we'll.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So what I have done is I have kind of collected some photographs and also gone into the making of some of these photographs, so that it's more of like a structured construct. Now this is one of the latest photographs I posted. I call it Proud, and it's very close to me, literally as well. This is something that I stumbled upon literally 10 minutes away from my house in middle of Bay Area. And there's something that I can, like folks can relate to how interesting this would be. So the most popular social network that we have on this planet, which is Instagram, this is not even 5 minutes away from their headquarters. And the whole land is full of cracks right now, and cracks is something which is a landscape photographer's dream element. At least for me it is. My friends call me I am cracked, which I am very happy to be called. So my wife's parents are here. They got stuck with us during the COVID period. They're not able to return back to India. And I think my mother-in-law, she's a little worried because every morning at 5 a.m. I'm leaving the house going and shooting cracks. Every evening, you know, I'm sprinting out and getting cracks. I mean, they're like, what? That place smells so much. What are you doing? And, you know, if my mom was around, right, because this place is kind of muddy as well. So she would still be like, abhi itna bada ho gaya, abhi bhi kichad mein khelta hai. You know, that kind of thing. But, you know, the whole, just this thing, right? Even though all of us are under the lockdown, there are a lot of local opportunities around us that are available, and a lot of good photographic opportunities. So I think good time to practice newer skills and, you know, look for stuff that we usually ignore. And Jasiji, I am looking at your Facebook feed as well recently, and the mobile shots, the compositions that you are posting these days, they're just marvelous. Every time I look at it, I smile. It's minimalist. It's just use of a bright color, and, you know, like, so nicely done. I think that's this whole spirit of photography, right? Things don't stop you. You can find your compositions here and everywhere. And, I mean, this is personally, for me, this is by far no less than visiting, you know, a national park or a wilderness area or something. I mean, it gives me that kind of feeling. Lets me connect with the space in, you know, that way. And I can tell you that a lot of my photographs, a lot of very good crack photographs are going to come up very soon from this region. And mostly, I think I'm not going to disclose it. Recently, I've also been stopped by a cop. Like, hey, you're not supposed to be stopping here. But I think I got my shots. So I can get into, you know, a little bit making of this shot as well. So just little basic details. It's a drone shot.
Yes,
I was about to
we
ask,
all thought it's
like
from Death Valley. We all thought it's from Death Valley and all. But nice to know that it's only read from your Instagram.
I can tell you, I'm dying to visit Death Valley right now. It's just I won't be allowed to leave my home. But I think this fills in that gap. This whole area fills in that gap.
Telling your mom that you're going to Death Valley right now is not going to be entertained, Shashank. Tracks में इतने मुश्किल हो रही है.
Oh yeah, totally. Anyway, so you know, it's just one of those quick shots. The light was really receding, and I flew my drone at really low height. I didn't want to fly it very high because this particular composition, it's not a big and broad composition. This is like very smaller level of detail. So I think I was probably at what 4 or 5 meters high when I was taking this shot. So you can imagine the scale. And this was pretty much, you know, the straight out of camera or straight out of drone kind of file. And I am someone who's not very confident shooting with a drone. I don't enjoy it. I prefer shooting with camera much. So this is probably the second release that I have done ever through a drone. And I have been owning a drone for almost 2 years now. So this was kind of, you know, breaking up that ground and, you know, getting comfortable with those raw files as well. So, you know, just a little bit about my editing process here. You know, so like this was like the really basic thing, kind of dirty in certain ways, but I had my composition set in nicer format. It was, you know, like a very balanced composition. There is like this small water element that's leading up to a plant. And I actually wanted to get closer to the plant. You can see on the left-hand side of the plant, there is a footprint. You know, it's kind of gone inside. I was trying to get very closer. I wanted to use it as a foreground element, shoot it with my camera, but this is so muddy that I was just about to sink in. So I quickly sprinted out, and I thought then, you know, the best way of capturing this is through a drone and not getting very close right now. Maybe in summer, the place heats up well, and, you know, the tiles are baked so that I can stand near them. So I think I'll have different set of shots also with this. But, you know, just the basic thing in Lightroom, I kind of fixed the light a bit, did a little bit of cloning, a little bit of cleaning in the shot overall. And just worked on, you know, the split toning of the shots in Lightroom. So Lightroom pretty much for me editing is lightweight. It's just getting the basic luminosity of the shot in right shape, cloning smaller little details that I can do in Lightroom, and then majority of my workflow is Photoshop. And I tend to double process my shots. So I will have multiple light settings in Lightroom. So maybe a cold scene, a warm scene, and stuff like that. One thing I really like is blending the warm and cold together in my scenes, because that allows that natural eye transition to happen. So, this is when, I got the shot in Photoshop, and then I started, enhancing the light a bit more further. I really didn't have to do much on the composition here. It was mostly about dodging and burning, highlighting certain elements, burning part of that, scene that is going, adding slight bit of depth to it. And, adding some more light to the plant that is there. And the other thing that I like to do at end of many of these edits is clean it up, like the jhadu marro kinds. So any smaller little things, which are irritating to my eye, as I start cleaning them up, there are new things that keep popping up that I need to clean. Even though I'm looking at some stuff right now, I feel like, oh, that is something that can go away. So, it's another principle that is, happening for me, at least in my photographic journey, is, eliminate as much of elements as you can, because that simplification really helps. It strengthens your scene a lot more. The subject where you want the viewers to focus, that, that really comes through. So that was the first photograph. If there's any question on this, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I can move to the next one.
Yeah, Shashank, I have an answer. I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So, without the presence of a human object, this looks like just a tiny, एकदम छोटा सा ये दिखता है.
Right.
Right. But then when you actually pointed out your footprint, that is when we realized that it is actually not that small.
Well, for me, it was actually the other way. I thought it's like really high up in, Death Valley, and it was like a really grand scene. And then when I realized that it is just, very low height from drone, then I guess it's not that big. It's pretty small. So that's, I think, it left viewer wondering how big is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective and visualization. But what gave it out for me was the clump of grass or whatever this vegetation is. So I thought like it's a really small clump of grass, and I actually thought that you captured it with a macro lens, like standing on top of them, on top of that, and like shooting from up really close. So that was what was in my mind. But yeah, thanks for the explanation, and thanks for giving a detailed account of this image. Awesome.
You're welcome, and thank you so much. I think it has served its purpose, because you were able to spend a minute looking at it, trying to study the scene and trying to know what it is. So I'm more happy about that. It may be a
I actually took out this image from your folder, and I made it a point that I'll ask you a question or two about this image. But then you started off with this one, so I'm very happy about it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please continue. Yeah.
So this is another, one of those chance shots, and I think I really love the spirit of getting those chance shots in very iconic places. This is Death Valley. It's I call it Cracked River. Technically, this is not the most perfect shot, because it was slightly shaky when I shot it, and I realized it later. But I loved that scene so much, when I was able to connect with the atmosphere, that I still wanted to process it and keep it as part of my portfolio. But the shot is fine, the lighting and all that is kind of very much my kind of colors that I kind of bring in, which is the warm and the cool again. So the biggest problem that happened, I shot it at 0.8 seconds. So, and I didn't realize, there was a little bit of shake. I tried to fix it in post, but I'll show you the raw file also, where it was, a bit more prominent. So this is that classic Death Valley tiles area, and I was on a solo trip. I saw that in Death Valley there is a major storm that is passing by, and I'm gonna get 30 mile per hour to 40 mile per hour kind of winds, and I've been waiting for those conditions. I think it was around 11:30 at night. I saw the forecast, and I asked my wife, "Hey, do you mind? Can I go to Vegas tomorrow morning? And I'll come back, end of the weekend." And she was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Where are you going to stay? And what all? You're going alone, just be safe. And I took the first flight next morning, I think around 6 a.m. I hardly slept that night, drove to Death Valley. Uh, Crazy windy. I've also added a video here of that. But, one of the evenings there, I was just scouting the cracks area. And you can see how the light falls here, right? The bright and the bluish part. Once you take it in post, it just starts glowing very nicely. But this is not what my shot happened to be. Just around that, in that beautiful playa of major cracks, there was this small section which was almost ending, and that had this very nice set of frame. There's a set of cracks in between there. It looks like a bow and arrow, or kind of like a bony or a scaling structure. And I think that caught my attention. And I just put my camera flat down and composed this shot. So that part of seeing it, seeing a different thing which usually is very insignificant, you would completely ignore in when you have such amazing other parts of the element landscape also, right? And everyone, whosoever was there, was just taking those crack shots. Those are wide angle crack shots. Of course I took mine as well, but I think this is something that I came out with which is slightly unique. And I felt I had some contribution to that area as well through that. So this was.
So Shashank, a question for you. This looks like a footprint to me. If I look at it, looks like a footprint. So how big are these cracks? I mean, can you give us a sense of scale?
Absolutely. I mean, can you see my tripod leg at the bottom of the main photograph?
Okay. That gives it away. Okay.
Yeah, and you definitely get bigger and smaller cracks, right? You will have cracks which are almost a feet wide versus something just a couple of inches. And after a good mud wash and a good summer, they dry very well. So you can also walk on them. You're not very much worried about destroying, but you still have to be careful. This is like perfect. And I showed it again to my mother-in-law, like this crack stuff. And she's like, India mein tum kisi bhi talab pe chale jao, hum tumhe dikha denge, wahan par bhi hota hai.
Go back to the previous image. Yeah, ये उनको नहीं दिखाया. ये तो येती का पैर है.
Yeah, Death Valley is still one of my favorites. I don't want to get back.
No, but we've had different kinds of landscape photographers on our show. Some were light chasers, some were storm chasers, some were crash chasers, and we can easily call you crack chasers.
All cracked up. I'm sure a group of my friends, they must be laughing at me. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I like it.
So, what is your both of your last image and this image had a very nice light works, light works done into those images. Like you had shown that how falling lights is kind of coming in when the original scene was pretty flat. But this is how how you made it look like that. That nice soft light of morning glow is coming from the horizon, and then it's lighting up the scene. So that is, I think, very unique. So, what is your typical process involved to craft this light? To actually, how do you craft this light? How do you give this light into landscapes?
Hi guys, Shonok here. I also just want to extend the question a bit. Hi, I saw that. Hi Shashank, how are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. How are you? Good to see you on camera finally.
Yeah, good, Shashank. Shashank, I saw that you used a Fuji X-T2.
Yes.
Yeah. So my question is, how does it help to get out those details? Compared, because we know that this Nikon 850 and the mirrorless Sony, these are powerful sensors. To compare to those, how do you feel that the sensor of X-T2 managed? Did it help you to get those light details? As Atanu is asking, did it help you to get those easily?
So I think I have a love affair with Fuji. very recently I have updated to Sony because I got an amazing deal. I got a $4,000 camera for $2,400, which I could not resist. But and I still have the Fuji body with me. All the photographs that you will see either on my Instagram or even in today's presentation, everything is Fuji. I have done just a couple of shots with my Sony right now. And not to mention, it is an excellent camera, amazing capabilities, the dynamic range I am getting, and the things that I am able to stop at. But Fuji honestly never limited me in that aspect, from low light photography to getting nebula colors in Milky Way. I will soon get to one of the Milky Way shots where it was not just the stars, but also the gaseous nebulas, which I was able to get on the Fuji sensor, right? So I think I have been able to play with the capabilities of that sensor to its extreme. And I have really enjoyed it. The colors that I get, the raw files that I get, and even, like if you see this particular file, there's a little bit of highlights that you can see on the edges, and the shadows are, shadows. I have nicer details. And when I took it to post, it was very easy for me to bring out that color. It's just a couple of sliders, just a basic split toning, having the sunlight kind of for my highlights and, blue kind of for my shadows. It just really popped up. I mean, I didn't have noise. I didn't have to deal with, any other set of constraints. So I've been in situations where I was completely, drowned into water, splashed into water big time, or, shot in extreme sandy situations. Very easy to clean, one of the best cameras to handle ergonomically, and the sensor is solid. And I mean, of course, photographers have love affair with gear, but I think for me, it is a little bit beyond gear. It is the comfort of using the camera also. And even though it was a crop sensor, I have loved each and every file that I have got from the Fuji sensor. I never felt held back in my post-processing techniques. And in certain places, like where the light condition anyways is, say it's extremely dark or something, I have developed my techniques of taking photographs. So I'll probably shoot blue hour and then I'll shoot at night again and stuff like that, so that I have much cleaner files. But that, I think, is not just Fuji, it's applicable to any cameras.
I think absolutely, I second that. That's wonderful.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So this was,
Wow.
Wow.
You felt it.
Yeah, felt the psychology here.
Just wanted to keep that clip here. These were the conditions that I actually went for, and I have some of these dreamy and the shot that I always desired of getting sand dunes with amazing wind blowing. And I think there were just 2 or 3 photographers and very few tourists at this place. And I feel blessed. I've kind of redeemed the kind of shots that I wanted. I'm actually scared of touching them. I don't want to destroy them in post. So I'm just letting them bake in before I start working on those shots. Again, another very calm and very peaceful kind of composition from sand dunes itself. So at Yahoo, we have a Yahoo Mail as one of the projects. I'm not selling or sponsoring anything, but I was just panning my telephoto, and again, I was at 400 mm on crop, which almost came up to 650 mm. So I was like super zoomed in, and the compression is so helpful. I looked at these ridges with different kind of lights forming, and this reminded me of a mail envelope. So I was like, okay, I'll give this photograph to Yahoo Mail folks, and I'll call, anyways, it's rendering in a little bit of the purple shade, which is the brand color for us. So it was just the mail envelope, the mail shot for me. one of the easy things to look at and just take a quick shot.
This is wonderfully seen.
So
can you go back again? Yeah. I have a question here. Not only pertaining to this image, I have been looking at your profile from quite a long time now, and my question is, I realize that I feel that is my analysis, that you are more fond of telephotos than extreme wide. So is it true?
Uh, it is in a way. I mean, I mostly shoot at extremes, both extremes. Either I'm shooting completely zoomed in or completely wide. I'm a little bit more scared of touching the files, the wide files that I have, because most of the prominent landscape photographers have been shooting wide, right? And when I look at similar kind of scenes that they have been able to produce, I just get a little scared. So I'm like, let me develop my skills better before I start touching those files. But it becomes a little easy for me and comes a bit more naturally for me to do the telephoto thing. So for now, I think it's a lot more telephoto, but I can tell you almost for every place, I have a lot of wide shots as well. It's just not.
Yeah.
So what is the, like, when you shot telephotos, like what is the range that you kind of use, that you use? Do you shoot like 400, 600, or what is the typical range, like, and like basically, like, what type of lens that do you use on that?
Till now, I have been using the 400 mm. And
400,
Death Valley, I was actually also using it with a 1.4x converter. So,
okay.
and also, and one interesting thing that I realized is there are two ways of capturing sand dunes. One is either you get very, very close or you get very, very far. And once you get very, very far, then you have the whole scene and you can still make it look a very wide scene and a very panoramic scene. And of course, getting very close, you have the leading lines going through the shot. So actually the next scene may again look like a wide scene, but this has been shot from very far, completely zoomed in, with these leading lines on the curves and, the depth in the background kind of coming through. Again, I mean, I have the wider shots, but I still probably chose to work on one of the tele shots for me. But again, completely zoomed in, shot from a bigger distance. I was not even in the sand dunes. I was very far away from sand dunes, looking into sand dunes kind of thing. And, just the classic Death Valley scene, the ridge lines and a very, calming light that was happening in the scene. And one thing that I have realized it gets very challenging because there's so much of foot traffic and tourists who visit Death Valley. You don't get cleaner lines anymore. You either have to go to, take an off-road kind of vehicle, go through, more distant dunes. Or, for these places, then I think you have to develop different strategies of shooting. You have to probably get there really early or, really late and, or go or walk a lot. So I think for this particular place, I walked almost 1 hour, and some of my friends had actually figured out what might be a good region to, shoot from. So we went there and, we just set up our thing and then kept panning around. And as the light was changing, so this is one of the places where it's not, like just a sunset kind of moment or, just that 5 minutes of shot. You can really shoot for a good 1.5 to 2 hours. And all different kind of lights, they play very well with this kind of subject. So even like, the blue hour or, the golden hour or absolute sunset. And even like if you get a little bit of clouds and the kind of light and shade that happens here, just incredible. One of very favorite subjects of mine to shoot.
Shashank, I think Atanu asked you on the last image as well, how you shape the light.
Yeah.
I mean, here as well, I can see that I don't think you dodged it, right? So you basically probably created masks and then managed the light. How did you do it?
So let me admit, first of all, I do not use luminosity masks a lot in my shot.
Okay, neither do we.
Instead of that, what I like to do is I create object masks.
Okay.
So I'll probably pick up a complete surface or a complete section, and then I would like to paint it. Rather than selectively bringing light, I kind of try to harmonize light to the whole subject directly. And I have used dodge and burn, but instead of just using the black and whites in dodge and burn, I kind of add a color to my dodge and burn. So I won't pick up the absolute black or the absolute white. I'll probably pick up a yellow, like a bright yellow or a bright or a dark blue kind of shade, and use that to kind of color my scene a little bit while dodging and burning.
Enhance the
The
shadows. Sorry. Do you enhance the shadows as well to create the contrast? Okay.
You actually have to work a lot on shadows and highlights just shine. Here also, the whole part on the right hand side has been painted.
Right.
Painted very well, painted through shadows and very carefully looked at. Even if you focus, look at the background, the details that are coming is not just because of the highlight, but also because of the shadows. And it's blue shadows, it's not like black shadows for me.
So selecting the object, like really kind of using a, whatever is a show or probably magic or object selections, it's pretty hard to do a precise object selection, right?
Thankfully, Photoshop 2020 has the object selection.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. A friend of mine, Tarun, excellent photographer himself, he makes a lot of fun because I asked him, hey, can someone please develop a plugin to just select objects? And he was like, dude, that is
they already have it.
Yeah. So I think that is very helpful. But prior to that, for me, it was mostly, probably drawing vector shapes, or going through very diligent process of selecting and then refining the edges and kind of reshaping the edges in a way so that it works out with my shot. Because absolutely, it is more challenging. But it gives me that painterly feeling of working on my shot, so I enjoy it.
It's fabulous. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of time you would have invested to basically work on the marking and dodging of this such a fine shot. Did you touch the background as well, Shashank?
Yes, I did. I had to, because there were some details in the background and I wanted to keep those details alive, even slightly bring it out, because those conical peaks, they had some character. So, and when I got the shot, I had it in in my focus, so I was like, why not just use it? Looks like just these pieces of chocolate.
Yeah, the lines. I mean, quite a few different observations from this image versus what I typically see. First of all, the peak, the edge is so sharp.
Yeah.
Right. Secondly, on the lit side of the dune, the lines or the patterns of the dune are basically overtaken by the luminosity that you applied on this, right? Which actually, makes it, I like probably a whip of cream or something. I don't know. I can't quite make out. Looks edible. Looks edible.
Ice cream, yeah.
Okay, let's call it brownie fudge cake or something.
And when you get a chance, you should look at YouTube. It's hilarious. It's like broken out over there, right, between all the guys. So I don't want to distract you now. So
okay, sure.
Yeah, not now at all. Not now. Later on, after finishing.
You will just add on now. What's going on?
Talking about food, and let me tell you, I'm a pakka Delhi wala. No photography trip is complete without good food. And
Shashank, can you come a little closer, because your voice at times goes really...
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I think I'll try to keep my pitch high as well. But what I was saying is, with photography, I'm a proper Delhi wala. Food comes very naturally. Any photo trip that we do, I think I am the person responsible for all chatpata snacks, all gum and cold drinks and whatnot. Everyone will go and get energy bars and healthy stuff, and I'll get all the shitty snacks, and everyone will enjoy. I proudly introduced interesting kind of things to a lot of my friends. Now they won't let me in car if I don't carry that stuff. But anyways, that is just a side note. I'll move ahead. I think probably this is the last shot I have. Thank you. It's one of my favorites. The very few shots that I actually print out, and this is the one which actually has gone on the wall as well. It's just so simple, so subtle. The colors are kind of that pastel, right? And again, that same process was applied. individually selecting the surfaces, creating masks for each and every layer, enhancing the light in each and every layer, also differentiating the light. I didn't want to use same set of colors throughout it, but keep it in a same family, make it look, it's the real thing, it's the blues and the highlights, but still differentiate them a little bit. I think that worked out in my favor, that trick. Absolutely my favorite shot.
Fantastic, yeah.
Thank you. One more. This was just a very basic, quick shot. I'm not very attached to it, but it was just this interesting atmosphere in Southwest with the rainbow and the stormy clouds and the light and shade that was happening. So not super attached, but just a pleasant sight to look at, a very natural scene.
You have a attachment to the simple scenes, like instead of very complex and very dramatic scenes like of Adamas and Randa, you have a very affinity towards this very simple scenes. Like, I can reckon probably TJ Tron has a similar attachment to the simple scenes like you. Maybe you are, I don't know, are you inspired by TJ or?
So I have attended one of TJ's spring waterfall workshop a few years back. And I think TJ and I are probably good friends now. I really appreciate the philosophy he has with nature, the way he connects. I mean, he's a true outdoors person. And at least in terms of photography, I think we appreciate each other's way of connecting with our subjects, and also like.
It's a great thing.
And I was in fact chatting with him after his talk. And I really loved the way he described, his connection, the way he takes photographs, and the way he approaches these shots. Even during that workshop, I remember we are looking at, the main subject, which is the waterfall, and trying to create leading lines and stuff. And I'll suddenly, get distracted, and I'll just be taking photograph of a plant with water. And then TJ and I will, get chatting, and we'll talk about, oh, hey, that water part looks very interesting, or just this particular element looks very interesting. So isolating it, simplifying it, even though there is a grand scene, but bringing one element of that grand scene is also very satisfying.
Very satisfying, yes.
All right, night shots. Another love or a passionate thing for me. The first Milky Way or the stars shot that I ever did, that was like super crappy. I didn't even know which direction to look at. I just went to a dark area. I was so excited about shooting Milky Way. I randomly pointed somewhere and, did a 30-second exposure and got shaky shot, star trail and whatnot. But it was so exciting. And that is when my passion for, trying out the night shots happened a lot. And I would say in my previous, or my version 1 as a photographer, as a landscape photographer, and I would call myself at version 2 right now. I've done a lot of crappy Milky Way shots. They are in my Flickr and other places, which I don't want to look at right now. But at one point I realized that I think just doing it at night with, just as a single comp, or, just as, like 130-second exposure, that was really not giving me the kind of data I wanted to get to process those shots and the details that I wanted to bring out. So I really, got into the process of doing it more like a composite, but still keeping the alignment and all the elements of that shot, more accurate to the scene. So like this particular scene was shot at Mono Lake, the Tufas. They're very popular, absolutely fantastic, otherworldly kind of scenes. And Mark Adamus probably has defined this place in such amazing ways. He has a moonrise shot, a very unique kind of shot. But so me and my friend Kaushik, we went there, and I think our plan was just basic, simple. We'll collect as much as of foregrounds as we can during the blue hour and during early morning. We took a little bit of break, then set up our tripods, and I think now I do not do Milky Way without trackers. So this I actually shot with the 1855 lens, not even the Rockinon 2.0. I shot it at, I think, 3.5 mostly with my Fuji 1855, almost 24 mm equivalent. Yeah, something in that range, and like multiple track shots, a minute long or 2 minute long kind of track shots. I think I take around 7 minimum shots and then blend them in. And the other thing that I really like to do is you get a lot of rich details through track shots, but there are too many stars. So this is an interesting astrophotography trick that I got to understand. That is called star reduction. So even though you are getting a lot of data, it becomes very important to simplify it. So if you look at the final shot on the left hand side, the galactic core is very detailed, very bright. The reason it is only that bright and detailed it looks is because the stars around it have been reduced significantly. The diameter of it, the luminosity of it has gone down. That is why the arc is popping up. So that has kind of become my go-to method for the Milky Way kind of shots, and just like having a very clean foreground, mixing it with a very clean Milky Way kind of background together. This was.
Shashank, are you using some automated process to reduce the stars, or is it manual?
So I use one of the softwares that is available for Mac. It is called Nebulosity. There are very less softwares, astro editing kind of softwares on Mac. Most of the heavy editing people do on PC. So Nebulosity gives me that set of controls. Even there are, I think, present day Photoshop plugins which allow you to do star reduction and thing. But I have not tried it. For me, the go-to is Nebulosity. So I typically what I do is I take these raw files, I apply a little bit of color correction and luminosity in Lightroom. Then I take 7 or 8 of those shots, stack them in Nebulosity, and then prepare the file, do the star reduction and whatnot, and again double process. So keep a highly detailed Milky Way shot and less details, surrounding sky shot, and then all of that kind of gets blended together in Photoshop.
Nice.
So which tracker did you use for this one? Like, what kind of star tracker do you use?
Ioptron, the red one,
Yes.
small. I think it's, and this was all on Fuji camera, so very lightweight setup.
Okay.
Just easy to carry actually.
So you do prefer tracking instead of stacking?
Actually,
or you do both? You do both.
I do both, right? I track multiple shots, so it's not just a single 1 minute track shot that works out. It's usually to kill the noise and get more color details and some bit of finer sky details. It happens after stacking only.
Okay. That is something new. I have seen someone use track and someone use stacking, but tracking and stacking is something new to me, and that's very interesting.
But a lot of people are doing that now.
Yeah,
a lot of serious-minded people are doing that, tracking and stacking.
Yeah, that is correct, and I think that is the way. I think that methodology has transferred from the deep space astrophotography.
Exactly.
That is how they achieve, higher details, the whole night or multiple night kind of data that they collect. And when I say data, I think you can also see in my process. For me, in field, I tend to collect data. And and then I'm trying to visualize while there itself what kind of shot I want to make, and to get that shot, what kind of data I need to collect, so that like everything kind of works out together later. So it's really just data collection that is there. This is another shot which I really like. So this was a very chance shot. I was driving through one of the passes near Yosemite. So I was going from the Yosemite side to Eastern Sierra. And this is a seasonal waterfall, which is just, happens in summer when the snow melts, and hardly anyone stops there. It is not a marked spot. I don't even know if it has a name. It's just a small creek that is passing by side of the freeway. And that kind of, again, I got a bit curious. I stopped side of the road and I just went down, took a couple of phone photographs, and I was like, damn, this is going to align well with Milky Way. I need to come back. So I didn't shoot it that same day, but a couple of days later, My wife and her friend, they were a friend of hers, she was visiting from India. So like, okay, let me take you guys to Yosemite. And while you guys roam around, there is one shot that I need to make. Can I please do that? So I used that trip. We just did a 4-hour drive, went to that area, got some really good shots, got all of them very excited, showed them the sky, showed them Milky Way, took some of their portrait photographs and whatnot. So everyone was happy and I was super happy. I got all the data that I wanted. So like, again, a blue hour shot of the waterfall. And then, I just went up on the road and tracked the Milky Way, very clear, details for it. And the best part that I really liked, which, I was mentioning earlier about Fuji sensor, right, is if you see on the right-hand side, you can also see that colorful part, it's called, I think, Ophiuchi. That is the part of the Milky Way where the Antares, the fifth brightest star also is. I was absolutely amazed, without any modified sensor or other kind of filters, I had those colors on my Fuji sensor. So that was one of the incredible moments for me of, like really testing the extremes of it. That's almost, deep space quality kind of colors that I was able to get from just regular.
That's amazing, right, Shashank? That's your personal experience?
Sorry, what? Can you say?
Replication, tonal replication has been amazing, right?
It's spot on, yeah. Like if you are doing weddings and events, I don't think you need to spend a lot of time editing your photographs. You can achieve it through the Fujifilm simulations and just the regular JPEG that it generates. I always had this complaint though of using Fuji, is the colors that I used to get on JPEG, Fuji never released the compatible plugins for Lightroom. So I was never able to get the same colors quality that I had in my JPEGs.
Maybe you can create your own profile.
I can. It was just too much of hit and trial and like playing around with sliders. I read a lot of different blogs if someone has figured out the right methodology, but I think everyone is just doing guesswork.
Which Fuji is this? XT?
This was XT2.
XT2, okay. I thought so.
And I stopped at XT2. I got really late in upgrading to XT3, and by that time I switched to Sony. Prakash, I think you are a Sony guy. I see your profile.
Actually, I used Fuji XT1, XT2 both. So nice. I kind of imagined that one.
Okay, great.
Shashank, can you go back to that previous image? I have a question. Now, looking at these two images that you've shown, I've seen. So I'm not a kind of Milky Way kind of a guy, a landscape guy. So somehow till now I've stayed away from that. But I've been watching. I've been seeing many kind of astro images created by some wonderful photographers. One thing that has always bothered me in most of the images is how people have used foreground. Mm-hmm. And in most of the images that I saw and liked, but I did not like, was the use of foreground. And I think in both of your images, what is standing out is you're dominatingly using this foreground and creating kind of almost giving them a 50-50% of the attention in the frame. So much so in this particular image, actually the foreground is almost dominating till you get to see the Milky Way, and then you get hooked on there. What is your thought on this? Because obviously you have a thought process, that is why you are creating this, but have you also created images with almost smaller and inconsequential foreground, or you have always done like this only?
That is, I think, the best question I had till now. Sorry, I mean, all the other questions were good, but this is spot on. I'll just stick to this particular section for a minute. I have tons and tons of crappy Milky Way photographs. And the reason I have those crappy photographs, and many other folks, I believe personally, is first, their attention is only Milky Way. They are, more excited just about Milky Way, and they want to align it with one of the elements. Either, it is, a peak or whatnot, and just that. The second part is, when you are actually shooting Milky Way, the light is so challenging. You just cannot see and frame properly your foreground.
Right.
That is one of the reasons I actually started doing my Milky Way foregrounds in Blue R. Because Blue R gives me an opportunity to actually set my frame, get a good shot, make those leading lines, or have a proper composition setup, and keep space for sky. And again, it is that same principle of how much sky I would like to keep for a sunset, or a moonrise or a moonset, or any regular event, right? How much sky do I need? Like 1/3 or a little more than 1/3 kind of frame that I want to fill. And it is basically just the same philosophy. So even if you see a longer Milky Way here as individually tracked, but when blended together, it's almost that 50-50%, or even the foreground is higher than the Milky Way, because it's landscape astro. It's not deep sky that I am doing. It's really, I'm trying to showcase the night sky or the beauty of night sky in our real landscapes. That is my philosophy.
There's a huge learning for people like me here, because you just mentioned deep sky. Now, I think what is happening is where the confusion. So I guys, whosoever is listening and who's following that kind of photography, there's nothing wrong in it, in my opinion, because I am a rank novice commenting here. It is just my opinion from the artistic point of view. Is that you are a landscape photographer and you're trying to create an astro image with the Milky Way, with its core of the Milky Way really prominent and so glowing, and you are giving equal weightage to your foreground and the Milky Way. Whereas in deep sky, what I understand by deep sky is that you really get into those details of what is inside that core. And even the normal astrophotographers who have no clue about deep sky, who have no equipment to shoot deep sky, are trying to shoot Milky Way as if they are trying to shoot deep sky. And that is where they are trying to, they are losing out, because then they are not focusing on the foreground, then they are not focusing on anything else, but they are focused only on the Milky Way and whatever stars and nebulas it is made of. That is
Absolutely.
my observation.
Agree with that. And I think the biggest element of Milky Way, the moment you get started, is right, all of us are so fascinated with night sky. And Milky Way is the kind of image we used to see from NASA. Like who thought growing up, this is the kind of image that I can create. These were the wallpapers, right? This is like the Hubble telescope kind of thing. And when you start shooting your first star shots, you suddenly, it's an enlightenment. Oh, I can get that kind of shot. My camera allows me to do that. Present day, Pixel and these kind of phones also allow me to do that. So it's just such an incredible journey. And Canon recently released, I think, the R series or
right. I think A series, Astro series.
A series, right. And there is such a strong market that is growing for landscape astro that even manufacturers are coming up with their equipment in that way. And I have two of my friends, Tarun and Dipanshu. I'm sure they must be grinning right now, because I think these guys have simply abandoned landscape, and they have gone so deep in deep space, right? One guy has modified his car. He's just, they are sleeping outside. They are just set up, automated the whole rig and whatnot. There's like thousands of dollars put into it.
Watching you live.
You know what? The camera right now Jesse is using Panasonic. I think that has inbuilt star tracker.
I have heard of it. I have really never.
Actually, it is one of the latest camera. None of the brand includes that, and which is a nice one to have.
Pentax has.
So Pentax, right?
Pentax has. Pentax.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, my knowledge on gear might be limited. So I'm sorry about that. But it's
wish all the manufacturers include that. It's a simple, such a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know how they work on the mechanics of it. Like how do they track it with the Earth's rotational speed? But yeah, that would be really good to know. Great. I have a few more images. So
Please.
Quickly jump to. This is another one of my favorite shots, and uh, just for few reasons. One, Yosemite shooting half dome tunnel view at any point of time, there are like around 200 photographers. That place is always full. Morning, evening, worst of the weather or best of the weather. Anytime you go, it's, there's just photographers, and everyone loves to get that postcard shot. And this was one opportunity to again do something very unique and again a very spontaneous thing. So my last trip to Yosemite, we had a very good blanket of fresh snow, clearing storms, very dramatic weather, valley fog and whatnot, and got through those shots and a little bit saturated on that because I have collected those shots over a period of time. I haven't edited a lot. So we were driving around, and at times I get very irritated with my friends because I want to do these random things. So I made them stop car, at side of the road because I saw some icicles hanging, and I was like, guys, just give me some time. I want to try out this shot. And a friend of mine, he actually took a photograph also, and I have some backstory, how this particular shot happened. So this was the portal and the view that I had. You can see there is a road in front, and there's the cut view of Half Dome, very central in the frame. Not everything is in my favor, but there are elements that I thought that I can use and have this set of composition ready. So again, it was there is something interesting. I know what I can do in post with this. So how can I just quickly get all of this data? And the weather was kind of getting gloomy. There was fog rolling in. So it was, I was about to lose sight of the Half Dome very soon. And I actually visited this particular place on 2 days, and the character of icicles had completely changed. When there was a little bit of heat, a lot of it was melting away. And on the first day, it was still solidified. So show like a quick set of images of, how that whole thing happened. So this is my friend Kaushik, who just took this photograph of a black bear, getting into a very small opening and, trying to shoot the icicles. And at one point I realized this tripod is in a very uncomfortable position. The legs are not in the right shape or place. So I abandoned the tripod and I just did a lot of handheld. I think that is one of the learnings from Mark Adamus' workshop, that he hates using tripod. And William Patino was recently also talking about that fact, right? It does get in the way, and here it was absolutely getting in the way, in burst of the way. So I literally dropped my tripod on the side and did a lot of handheld shooting. It was fast, almost 1/60th of a second, and at times I was switching between f10, f4, and many of these settings, even like going with very higher ISOs, because I knew I wanted the character of icicles to be sharp, and then I can fill in the details. So mix of shots, and a lot of shots actually. So then I was able to isolate different set of icicles in that area with a blurry background, because I was trying to get a moody scene. The fog was coming in and all of that. So how can I use all these components together and come up with some shot? And then I took photographs through the icicles as well as a very clear view of the background that I can use, for my merging later in the post. And this was the composition, the merge that happened, bringing in my icicles together with the shot and cleaning it up, clearing it, removing the road in front, just making it look much nicer of a frame. And then this was when that whole color theory and dynamic light and detailing, all of that was applied. So
love it. Totally love it.
Thank you, Athanu. Appreciate it.
I have one question here. This is amazing, the kind of rendition that you've done from what you saw initially and what you brought out as a presentation outside. My question is that you said that you are collecting data and as much as you can. Do you visualize your final image at least to a certain extent? And that is how you decide what to shoot and what to collect as a data, or you just keep on randomly shooting multiple things and then try and preview, then you visualize later on. What is that process that you follow?
I think it started as a very confusing process for me initially. like it was very difficult. Because it was mostly, I'll take any photograph and I'll then keep experimenting in post. But I think gradually I have trained myself to think in terms of data collection, think in terms of what I eventually want out of this, what kind of shot, I'm envisioning. And fortunately, me being a designer and having a little bit of the visual sense and, gone through that rigorous, element, I am quickly able to visualize some parts. So I think that is one of the strengths that I have. And that is helping me in photography as well a lot. So that is something, that has happened in field a lot of practice has gone in. And one thing I can proudly say, and I don't want to disappoint anyone or hurt anyone's feeling, I'm not a professional photographer. I am someone for whom this is a very passionate hobby. So I am allowed to do more mistakes than what a professional photographer would do, right? They will always have the right techniques and everything. For me, it is still slightly experimental. I'm trying to get a lot of data, much more than it may actually be required. So a lot of files go wasted. But at least I am satisfied that the kind of shot that I wanted. So if this shot may have been possible, say if Mark Adamus was shooting, he would have done a brilliant composition in just 2 minutes. He won't need more than that. Whereas I would end up spending around 15 to 20 minutes, just getting all my data. And then
I think in the end it really does not matter, because how much time you spend on creating an image, nobody really looks at that. What everybody looks at is the final image, final outcome, what people see, and I think that is what matters. And nowhere does an EXIF contain that, okay, Fujifilm X-T2, 55 mm, f10, ISO 200, 1/60th of a second, but 2 hours to process.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention that.
Yeah.
So as far as it doesn't mention, it's perfectly all right.
And honestly, I am very comfortable about the fact, because for me, this is art. This is not documentary photography. I'm not a journalist. I'm seriously approaching it as an artistic element. So I get to paint my landscapes in this way. So I am happy about it. I'm very satisfied.
That's perfectly said. Paint your landscape.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. Another of those mountain shots, and something again very close to me, just because how I got to shoot. Another one of those interesting stories. And the atmosphere was absolutely amazing. We were coming back from Death Valley and we were driving through that stretch of 395, the freeway, which is one of the most beautiful freeways for me, at least locally. Amazing, beautiful mountain ranges, a lot of good drama that you get there. And almost every big photographer has made unbelievably good shots there. Mark Adamus probably may call that as his second home, because he's shot that so much and he conducts a good amount of workshops in that region as well. A lot of variety. So this particular thing, if I may ask the panelists, or if even in the audience, if anyone can tell me what this frame is, right? It may be very obvious, but for me, it was something very interesting.
I think it's a tree. It's I am forgetting that bristlecone pine. Is it a bristlecone pine tree trunk?
That is very native to that area and an unbelievably beautiful thing. But you would be surprised looking at the next element.
Okay.
This is a fence post.
Oh, wow.
Went other side of the road, did a teleconstruction.
I was about to say that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was actually about to say it's a hole within a fence.
Ah, nice.
Look at the fence. It's very small.
Sorry?
I said that's a fine eye to catch that.
I mean, it was fun, right? I had this
Right.
drama that is happening, right? And then suddenly I see this fence post and it looks like, that Gulail thing. And I just go there, point my phone to it, and I see, oh yeah, a shot is possible. So, and then just I'm fiddling around trying to see what focal length will work. How do I get both the elements together? I don't want this grass in this particular shot. I just want the mountains, the drama that is happening, just composited in. So I kind of went far from this post. I took out my telephoto, used this as compression, and again, a lot of focus stacking and like shooting multiple elements, that spirit of data collection, and then doing all of that in post, but still keeping the essence of that atmosphere alive. So that was fun. And I specifically took, today morning I was losing internet, right? And I woke up around 7 and I wanted to get a screenshot of that fence post, because this is the most interesting element to me about this shot.
And you looked at, and I think it is a Google Maps screenshot. The middle one is a Google Maps screenshot. So did you actually plan that in Google Map before going there?
I did not. Remember the first thing I said as growing up, one of the things that I really liked is just looking outside the window and seeing things, observing. And we were driving through the car and, we saw this thing happening, and this thing somehow caught my eye. So we stopped there, we stopped in the shoulder, and I ran to this particular part. Like, hey, something is possible, let me at least try it. And I'm very open-minded in general. I very open-minded about critiques, very open-minded about trying out different things. So again, this is not me taking an expert stance of things, but a very amateur stance and just trying out and coming up with something interesting.
This is pretty close to what Alex Noriega showed us as well, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
At least he was trekking. I mean, the rate of movement was where you can, observe and process what you're seeing. You being in a car, this is unbelievable. How did you pre-visualize this? That,
I mean, it was just this feeling, right? That, hey, that looks interesting. It is slightly different, and there is stuff that is happening. If it would have been tree, right, it would have been the same thing. But this fence post, the wooden texture and everything, it was just very similar to a tree. So around with that.
You can't actually pre-visualize this. Like, this has to happen like a light, as Sandeep ji says, light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Always on the go. Suit always on the go.
A lot of bulbs lighting up. I think it's a LED panel inside. Always confused.
Right.
Another one of my favorite shots. This is the classic, the moonrise kind of thing. But again, it happened by chance. So I'm sure all of us are familiar as landscape photographers about the firefall event that happens in Yosemite. Incredibly beautiful. And I also, I've been trying it multiple years. I was never able to get that shot. Not necessarily to post it or, make it as part of my portfolio, but for friends and family. Because many times over WhatsApp, they keep sending, hey, in US, this is something that is happening. This is amazing. So I was like, okay, let me also take a photograph and send it to you guys. You circulate it in family groups, all fine. So I went for the firefall and all good. I was finally able to get one of those shots. But as we were walking down to the car, this particular time, the national park rangers, they had closed down the road, so they were limiting the traffic a lot. So we had to walk almost a mile, over a mile to in knee-deep snow. And let me again share the sequence of how I saw this shot and then went on to composing it. So as I was walking, the middle photograph, I just saw the moon rising and I could see, wow, there is Half Dome and it's just rising over Half Dome. My first vision was, through a very bushy scene and, a lot of trees and whatnot, but that glow was there and all the elements were there. So I just needed to get a clear view. So then I, sprinted, ran around. There was another friend of mine with me. I asked him, hey, do you also want to try out this shot? This looks very interesting. There were thousands of photographers there and very few folks actually noticed that there is some photographic potential here. Most of the people, they just stood by side of the road, took out a telephoto, just started, taking the zoom, moon rising just next to the Half Dome kind of shot. But, something, because there was Merced River, there's light reflecting, there is fog happening, there is snow, all those elements are there in place. So very difficult thing, all bushy, lot of snow. Somehow reached to the shore of Merced River and try to make some shots, try to, it was still very messy, but I was able to get very nicer background. I was able to get some data for my foreground. And on the left-hand side, the shot that you will see, I kind of stretched my river part a little bit so that that line happens on the reflection of moonlight is happening in water. And I still have that sense of the shoreline where I'm standing kind of like a bit of a balanced frame. And a lot of cleanup I had to do, remove like bushes and clear up the water and make it look very simple scene. rather than the set of complexity that was going in the scene.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, please.
So this is one single shot or blended?
This is blended.
How many?
This is
3?
blended, I think so. Blended in a way that I took multiple exposures for the moon. I took exposures for the foreground, and I also took exposure for the shoreline. You know, the one at the bottom that you see. Because if I was exposing for just my background and foreground, my moon was completely blue, right? As you can see in the photograph. And on the left hand side, you will see a very subtle amount of detail of moon, not like completely good looking moon. So I got those shots, but when I blended in the moon in its place, I kept little bit of detail as pretty much what I could see from my eye. Because in a realistic view, if you look at moon with the landscape, you do see the details of moon. It's not blown out. So I think that is something that I wanted to bring back into the shot.
Perfect.
Perfect. I think your telephoto vision that you try and shoot with telephoto helped you visualize what is beyond that clutter, and all those wide angle guys were focused only on the clutter part.
I think that happens, right? It's like so. I think I still honestly believe in the idea of getting a single frame and composing it. It is very powerful, and I have a lot of those shots. But
actually, I'm really intrigued by the center image. Where the moon is visible through these twigs or branches.
Yeah,
that is really cool image. If you can clean up, that's a very good image actually.
Prakash, that is correct, and I think I have some data that I can do. It just becomes one of those very nicely lit, moody kind of light happening.
Exactly. Is that haunted kind of a scene is there?
Absolutely. And that also reminds me of, what is the name of this guy? He's very famous Chilean astrophotographer.
Yuri Bresky? No.
Yuri. I also had an opportunity to meet him at one point.
Oh, he is.
He recently shot the solar eclipse, and he shot it with the trees. A very simple composition, very beautiful. Your thought reminded me of that. Another shot, Big Sur, Kala Lily is a very popular, very iconic shot on California coastline. A lot of landscape photographers have done justice to it. I was just happy. I got a little bit of unique conditions. It was afternoon. I saw it's going to rain. And mostly, when it's going to rain, you don't want to get out because there is no guarantee that the sky is going to light up and the conditions are going to be good. And this place definitely gets a lot of muddy. Like really, really bad. So anyways, I had some time available. I left my house around 2 o'clock, avoid traffic, close to 2-hour drive, reached there. And the best part happened. I realized I do not have my memory cards because for this particular place, I was not taking my full camera bag. I was just taking one lens, one tripod and moved it to a smaller bag. And I always end up doing this thing, whenever I switch my camera bags, I forget something. So this time I forgot my memory cards. And because of the conditions, there was like, usually there are a couple of photographers, but this time hardly there was anyone. And then I saw one guy who was trying out, he was local and he was there. So I requested him, we connected, spoke a little bit about photography and Instagram and stuff. And I requested if I can use his memory card for a couple of shots. I just wanted it for 5 minutes. So, and he was very kind, he gave me, he had all his shots on his card. He just gave me for 5 minutes. And, I took few handheld shots. I didn't have time to set up a tripod and, do all that good stuff. So just took like a couple of focus stack kind of thing, just the light and data that I need. And then, later in the evening, he emailed me all the shots that I had. It was, I think, around a set of 16 shots, somewhere close to that I had taken. And that I probably, at least, I don't know why people like it so much. I'm not a huge fan of this. On social media, this is one of the most popular shots I have, gets reshared almost every other day. But, I can quickly walk through just the process for this as well.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
a lot of individual shots, like as you can see, like different focus stacking happening, front, back, mid, right, all of those kind of things, and then blended together different focus stacked shots. And then came the light up part, just kind of brightening it up. And I added a sunstar in post that was little amateurish, but I think it went with the scene, so I just kind of kept it. Just throwing the light from the front and coming into the scene onto the flowers. And this is very unique, where you have drops on top of flowers. Otherwise, all the shots here are pretty much just flat flowers. So that was something very interesting. And then really, coming up with the glow and, bringing it to the front and making it very dynamic as a shot in terms of light as well as composition. So like big flower, small flower, another small flower leading into valley of flowers to the water, all lines, going to the center, and then a kiddish sunstar. And I think I specifically, diluted the sky a little bit, kept it soft rather than very, very detailed out, just for the glow of light to happen.
Yep, that worked very well.
Thank you. I think I'm done with all the making parts of it. I just have collection of couple of shots. Maybe quickly I can go through that. Another classic scene, the Antelope Canyon. You just feel like, walking into it. Slots are something really beautiful. So, one of the shots I really like. Another shot which I really love is this one, and I went with a different style of editing. This is again Yosemite, and I think February time frame. It was still cold, and as the sun started hitting the ground, all the mist started rising up, and I had a little bit of sunbeams come up. It was a very warm shot and very harsh details in the foreground. So I had to really kind of go dark, kill the details that I had in foreground, just in favor of this moodiness to happen, like a little bit of wooded scene. So some of that exploration happened. Went with a colder color scheme rather than a warmer color scheme. I'll quickly go through a few of the last shots. Please stop me if you have any questions anywhere. Hardly do black and whites, but this is white pockets, and I loved, the reflection that was happening in a small puddle of water. A lot of folks have shot this, so it's not really a unique composition, but something I really enjoyed, so kept it alive. Another very simple shot, Yosemite, again, part of the snow. It was a fleeting moment. I mean, it just disappeared. The whole trees disappeared and everything. But I had a umbrella with me, just standing under the umbrella, trying to dodge snow and all the water that was happening. And stood under a tree, just took a couple of quick shots and got out. One of the recent shots, not a huge fan of it photographically, but this is again one of those Corona kind of things, because something very close by home, a good sunset was happening, just printed out and ended up with a decent shot. So kind of liked it in that way.
And it's a drone shot, right?
It is a drone shot. Yes, it is a drone shot. I think the quality of the file in itself also says the kind of noise that it has. So drone tends to over sharpen the file. I think that is the part that I don't like. And when I look at this particular shot on bigger screens, that becomes even more evident. Even in background, you will see the kind of noise. It's just not a pleasant noise.
Well, I think it looks okay. I mean, it looks nice for me, and I just thought the perspective is very nice and up in the air. Yeah. So drone makes really a good composition here.
That is correct. I mean, I was at least try to use these lines as my leading lines, looking through these ridges,
right.
Going in subject. Simple fall scene again, Portland. Just the place gets beautiful, and a little bit of that haunted feel here.
Yeah.
Again, typically most of the fall scenes that I see, they're very intimate and very bright, but this was a little bit of moody exploration that I was looking at.
It's beautiful.
Eclipse. The shot in itself is okay. I was very happy. I was able to get certain amount of details, but the feeling of standing under totality, I think that was mind-blowing. And one thing I recollect is many of the prominent landscape photographers, everyone on social media was trying to say, hey, why are people making this big deal about solar eclipse? Why, this is like, it's okay, it's just one of the solar events. But few of those ended up actually visiting the totality and see that and experience it. And after that, they made statements of, this is probably one of the best natural experiences they had. It's almost, like standing in natural spa for a couple of seconds, the temperature just drops, you get chills in your body, the light changes completely. And strangely, back in India, you have a negative association with Grahan. I remember while I was growing up, there was a Chandra Grahan, or there's a solar eclipse that was happening in Delhi. And my parents didn't let me go out and see. I had to watch it on Doordarshan, and then I had to see it through X-ray, scans. But any next opportunity I'm getting of solar eclipses, I'm never going to miss it. It's just.
I think in India there is a solar eclipse on 25th of June. Next month there is solar eclipse in Punjab.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I think Ajay Talwar posted that, and I read that yesterday.
Oh, very nice. I'm a fan of his work. A lot of astro stuff there. Yeah. Last theme, just closing slide, not photographic, just one of those moments. Reminded me of a quote by the most cliched and well-known quote for photographers. A good photograph is knowing where to stand. I think there was this shadow of mine happening in white pockets, which I really liked, and this was the quote that was running in my mind. So thank you. This is the end of my presentation, and very, very happy to share a good amount of work with everyone. And thank you again for having me here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It was such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it was really inspiring. Anybody has any questions, guys? Panelists?
So Shashank, you had that one shot of the Antelope Canyon, was it? With the slots of the slits where the light comes down?
That is right, yeah.
Isn't that the place where people usually throw up sand and then try and capture the light? You didn't try that trick?
I have that. It's actually not a pleasurable experience shooting it. And I have shot this place in a very interesting scenario. So when I was very new to US and I was on my version 0.5 as a photographer probably, I got an opportunity to get the whole place to myself.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Moonlight at night, and then the moon was setting and the Milky Way was coming up. So I got to do some shots. They look very childish right now. I wish I get that opportunity again. It's kind of blocked now, but I did the interesting, the fireworks kind of, the spirals and the moon coming up through the slot canyon and stars. So I think that movement was good. The shots didn't end up being very good, but recently I think they have imposed a lot of restrictions here. And it's not fun shooting. They just rush you through there. Like the guide will set up everything, he'll do it, he'll give you a minute, just take your shot and get out kind of thing.
Yeah, they will even take your pictures. They will say, oh, this is Rocky Mountain sunset. Give me, and then point the camera and take your pictures, and then they will take you out.
Exactly right. But I think there are a lot of good canyons and slot canyons in that region. So this is done.
Shashank, one question from me. Yeah, so your time in India, like you went to Northeast and then you're in Bangalore as well, right? And I consider myself lucky. I'm from Northeast, but I consider myself lucky that I came to Bangalore because I had access to pretty much the same greenery that I've left behind, right? Because the Western Ghats. With your upgradation of post-processing skills, you never thought to go back to your old files, probably create some magic?
I am actually desperate to head back.
No, I mean with your raw files, maybe. With your raw files that sit on your disk now.
Sorry, is everyone online? Seems like I lost sight. Oh yeah,
okay. No, I was referring to your old files. Do you feel like going back to your old files and then creating some magic?
I have, at occasions, I have browsed through my old files. I think compositionally, I don't enjoy it that much because I was not shooting with that, landscape set of mind. It was, I have a lot of other experimental things, people and, like certain details and whatnot. But I think I really want to get back. I want to spend time. One thing that I feel is if, like I'm spending so much time here and able to create a lot of good photographs. And now I miss India because it has so much of beauty, which, I with my present day skills, I want to utilize and want to make those kind of shots there.
What are some of the locations you'd like to shoot?
Being fascinated with all the Leh Ladakh stuff. I've never been there, and I have seen photographs from almost everyone here of amazing like Spiti photographs and whatnot. So that is one thing which is very high on my list. And the other project that I was talking about, shooting architectural monuments, heritage monuments with nightlight. That is one of the high priority things for me. I really want to do that. And even, like I figured out in Madhya Pradesh, there are a lot of waterfalls, very seasonal waterfalls that happen, and they're rushing and gushing. That is one of the things that I really want to try out. So my list is growing, but it's a good dream list to have. Anytime I get to visit, if it's a 2-week or a 3-week trip, my mom really wants me to stay back home, but I think I'm going to plan some stuff.
Fantastic. Anybody else?
Yeah, Shashank, what
Yeah.
has been your toughest image till date?
Sorry, my success image?
No, toughest.
Toughest. Oh.
Hardest. And how did you like get by?
I think if I have to answer that for him on a lighter note, it will be that where he forgot his memory card. He could not.
That could be one. That could be one. Yeah.
I would have cried. I can tell you honestly. If I didn't get the memory card, I would have tears in my eyes because
we know exactly what you mean. The same for all of us.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
This bonding is so special, right? Like all of us can understand how this is emotional to us and how this is creative, right. And it's a good outlet.
Awesome.
Anybody else? Sanak?
Sanak has been missing.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Sanak.
Yeah, Shashank, thank you so much for the wonderful insights on landscape photography that you have. One thing that I want to ask you, you were mentioning about capturing details all through your presentation, and that really is a different thing that I really liked it. So I just want to ask on behalf of all the aspiring photographers, including me, how important is visualization and how to improve the visualization skills? Because at the end, it all comes down to the visualization. And I have also seen the Mark Adams tutorial, and that really gave me some nice insights. So I want to take your opinion.
Absolutely, Sanak.
I think Sanak has a
voice is breaking up.
There's a lag. Sanak, can you ask again if there's a lag?
Yeah, I got
okay. No, right. I was asking how one can improve his visualization skills and how important it is for getting to the next level. We know that it's very important, but how we can really improvise on that skill.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a brilliant question, and I think it's one of the most, at least in my work, it's a very fundamental thing, which is the art of seeing. And anything, if we pay attention, that is the thing that we are trying to do. Even a new post-processing skill that we are doing, or any tutorial that we are watching, or any photograph that we are looking at, we're trying to train our eyes. We are trying to read the colors. We are trying to read the composition. We are trying to assess. And the other thing that we are trying to do parallelly is, and since you mentioned Mark Adams's tutorials, one of the learnings from his thought process is almost developing a parallel vision of how a camera would see, because how your eyes see versus how your camera sees, right? That is very different. And once you have that set of vision of your lenses so well, your the focal length so well that what you're going to get out of it. For example, with a wide angle, if you know that this is the distortion that you can get out of it, the corners, bringing the leading lines in, you have already developed that sense. Then those are the things to pay attention to. It's I think a lot of folks immediately start looking at the end result, it is probably, which is good. I mean, it's very good. And one thing that I think that happens is we're trying to emulate a lot in the field. So I think all of us as photographers need to spend some more time experimenting as well, not just, we saw some shot and now we want to get exactly the same shot. In that sense, I think we are just, picking up only that kind of skill. We are not probably learning new skills. So, trying to experiment in the field, trying to observe how your lens behaves at a particular focal length, what type of optical advantages you get from your things, right? And I think that is a very important element. And as you start looking at colors as lights, you're again training your eye for better sensitivity. And I think almost every photographer would probably relate to it, that when they edit their photograph once, they love it, right? They sleep over it. Next time when they see it again, there is something they find to improve further. And for me, what I usually do is I end up editing my file 3 times, not just once, because earlier what I used to do was, it was just shooting, taking photograph, editing it in one go, spending a couple of hours, and then just posting it. But the moment I went slow with it, there is a lot of improvement that happened in training my eye itself. There are a lot of smaller things that it gets unnoticed in that rush of processing and pushing it out. So just slowing down, observing details, and again developing that connection, I think that helps a lot. Building that pre-visualization as well.
Yeah, thanks, Shashank. Thanks so
hope
much.
I answered the question.
And I believe that it is very gradual, means it cannot be so abrupt. Definitely, it will take time, at least a year or 2 minimum.
Honestly, yes. I mean, the more you're practicing, right, the more you're trying out things, it happens.
Right.
And for me, one of the things that it's a little unfortunate also for the photography industry, where people laugh at each other's shots or make fun of it. Hey, this is very immature, and this is like this or this is like that. It should have been like that. I think one of the things to realize is, and because I have gone through that thing, right, and I'm still like learning. Every photographer is at a different stage in their learning, in their skill set, in their capacity, and almost everyone that you will see has improved over time. The first shot that they got, or the first year of photography versus the third year of photography or 5th year of photography, right? The improvements have been drastic. So it's just keep doing it, and keep enjoying it as well.
Right. Now, I believe also it has to do with how open you are in accepting your mistakes. That's also a very important part.
Very true. Also getting critique. I think getting critique from trusted sources. None of my photograph usually goes out by the time at least a set of my trusted friends have looked at it. The community that I am part of, I've shared it a couple of times. And being shameless, and like there are a lot of mistakes. I also end up sharing a very quick thought, just a 5-minute process of, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? Is this light working out? Is this color scheme working out? And I end up doing a lot of stupid mistakes, and then these guys point out to me, and like we all have a good laugh. But end of it, it's a good photograph that comes out.
Thank you, Shashank. Thank you.
Right. Shashank, I have one observation to make. So some of your, your abstracts, those abstracts look quite similar or quite inspired by those which are captured by this great photographer called Gaital. So, yeah. So how much of his work has an inspiration on your work?
First of all, thank you. It's an honor if it brings that kind of similarity. I'm very glad. One of the most respected photographers, and his connection and his understanding of subjects and taking those photographs, those intimate details, is absolutely at a different level. And in fact, in processing, right, he's just so subtle about his processing. It puts us to shame many times. It's like just gone so simple and still expressed a very nice scene. A lot of learnings from me, for me at least, and many times, when I'm looking at some scene in the field, this thought definitely comes to my mind. Gaital might have also seen this kind of thing. So that association keeps happening frequently.
That is something which I noticed, like, because I am a fan of abstract, like, so.
Thank you.
I love that.
Awesome. Perfect.
I see a lot of similarities between Noriega and your intimate in terms of tonal representation, right? So easy to look at, right? Never oversaturated. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we fall into because it gets us the social media likes, oversaturation. But then again, we are losing out on our own brand values, right?
So I have honestly gone through the days of 100% vibrance, 100% saturation. And now it is mostly -10 saturation and -20 vibration on many. That is pretty much the default slider for me in Lightroom. And then I selectively add color where I need.
I think we all go through that, but few surpass that, realize that faster and go beyond, and few like us get stuck there and keep on saturating ourselves.
Sir, I am so color conscious. You know, the most confident color I have in my palette, as well as my clothes, is black. In last so many years, you know, since I was a student of architecture, I have not really wore any other color. It's just been black for me. So I am underconfident on color, and I think that is helping me right now.
There are a couple of questions on YouTube. One is by Sarita. What is your bigger inspiration, nature or catchy compositions?
Nature, absolutely, 100% nature, and compositions just happen. For me, it's mostly, you know, I anything that I would look at, even like right now, if I'm looking just outside my window and there are like the neighbor's front yard and this tree and everything, that is the thing. And then I will try to find compositions in there. The act of looking for new compositions and interesting things in whatever scene that is available, I think that is my biggest inspiration, or the stuff that I seek. So absolutely, it's just being out in nature and, you know, connecting first.
So there is one more question by Sayan. He's asking, Shashank, please share your idea behind your IIT Bombay hostel room. I guess that is a great example of your creative visualization.
Well, you know, there are bits and pieces of me that I still like to keep alive. So I studied architecture. I did internships, but I never got to practice it. Even before my thesis got over, I had my admission for my master's. So, you know, I just quickly jumped the ship, and I moved from a very hands-on, you know, hand drafting, hand drawing kind of word to a very digital format of design, you know, user experience design. It's all about mobile apps, softwares, and all the IT stuff, right? But that was one way of me keeping my architectural stuff alive. I got a hostel room, and I think I may be boasting about it, but this is the most popular hostel room of India. I had like neon black lights and, you know, like mini bar and whatnot. Very interesting thing. I painted it. I set up like some paintings and whatnot, and I paid fine for it. And then when I was leaving it, there was a bidding. So, you know, all the design students itself, they wanted to get the room. A lot of folks came back from their vacation 15 days in advance, like 2 weeks in advance, just to make sure that they get that room in time. So yeah, it was it was fun. It was definitely one of the party rooms in campus.
Okay, wonderful. I have few questions. If anybody has from the panelists has some question, please go ahead.
No, I don't have any questions. I will catch up with Shashank definitely. We are in the same time.
All right.
You know, you are in Portland, man. I'm gonna hit you so many times.
I'm in Bangalore, Shashank. Do you hit me?
We're gonna hit the pubs there, man.
Yeah, once the lockdown is over.
Or Nandi Hills, you know.
Yeah.
I'll take you to better places. You have a very, you know, probably horrid version of Bangalore in mind.
I'm looking forward.
He's technically still living in the mythological area in Bangalore. In Bangalore. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. One is that you have had this opportunity to rub your shoulders with people like TJ and Alex and other greats also. Do you think that has any way helped you groom and grow in your skill levels slightly faster than you would have grown otherwise? And that have they influenced your photography style in some way or the other?
Thank you for the question. And absolutely, yes. I have not had the opportunity to meet Alex yet, and I'm very much looking forward to it. He does really wonderful stuff. But TJ is a very good friend of Alex, so I've heard interesting stories about their work process. But I think a person who is in the learning stage and still trying to grow, and even the question Sanak had of how to visualize, right? I think attending workshops are incredibly helpful in your journey as a photographer, because you break your comfort zone. You are in that spirit of learning a lot of new things, and then there is that mindset, and we also use that mindset in design a lot, which is called the teacher apprentice model. So the moment you put yourself into that teacher apprentice model where someone is a teacher, you suddenly get into this learning mode. When you're shooting with your friends, there is still that sense of peers and kind of competing with each other and whatnot. But in workshops and other places, you're completely in a learning mode, and just being in that mindset itself helps a lot, and so much of information you absorb. And there are best of the tips and tricks and a lot of resources that are available to you. Networking, it becomes a lifelong connection also with many of these photographers, right? It's not just one-time opportunity. So if you have a possibility of attending even small workshops, not even like bigger workshops or very expensive workshops, I think it is completely worth it.
Definitely.
That wonderful answer. The second is that you're still in your full-time job, am I right?
Yes.
How do you balance? Because you see, let me tell you, the biggest peeve that we get to hear from anybody in India particularly is that time ही नहीं है. Sir, time कहाँ है? Office से इतने time बाद आते हैं, थक जाते हैं, छुट्टी नहीं मिलती. So how do you balance it?
Let me actually. You had question from Sarit, I think recently, right? The one that you asked me. Sarit was my ex-manager, right? And we have worked together for almost 9 years. And he is also, designer from NID Ahmedabad, and very creative person. And at every opportunity, like when we talk about photography, he's always like, "Chal yaar, photo खींचेंगे. मैं साथ चलूँगा photo खींचने." Anytime, I am going out, I'll text him, "Sarit, okay, I'm going to pick you in 20 minutes. Just be ready." I can't go. So, I mean, just extracting people out of their home, it's like so many things that are going on. I think since we have been doing it more regularly, we have developed that lifestyle and that connection that we know how to sneak out and then sneak back in, and manage that time in certain ways, or whatever opportunity we are getting. Otherwise, I know I'll end up watching Netflix, or I'll end up just looking at some YouTube stuff or processing it if I'm not in the field. So it's better for me, to be little uncomfortable. And many times, last week itself, on so many opportunities, I woke up around 4:30, or I couldn't get proper sleep just because I was very excited to get those cracks. So I think it's that passion that you have to keep it alive, right? And you have to make that effort. And once you start making that effort, I think it just starts happening. Like, I'm not exercising, I'm not motivated enough. So, I just keep saying I don't have time to exercise, but I have time to photograph. And even with the work situation, one thing is, I think I've spent a good amount of time, almost close to 10 years in the company. People know me, we know each other. I think we have developed that understanding that my professional work, my professional life never suffers because of my photography life. So even though, if I am like, if there is some time that I'm taking for my photography, I'm very open about it. It's not like, I'm trying to hide anything or shy away from, they know how passionate I am about my work as well as about my photography. And I have a very good support system, even at work, where, we talk about things, we share, they love looking at my photographs as well. And, there's that sense of mutual respect that, if one of the afternoons I feel there is a really good, sunset that's going to happen and I need to leave early, I'll just let everyone know, folks, I will be shooting in the evening and I'm just heading out right now. But later in the evening, I'll catch up with the work that I have. So it's not something, like I'm creating dependencies for other people that, I'm away and I'm not available. I'm pretty much always available. Even that firefall evening, there was some incident that was happening in office and I got called while I was, there in very patchy network. Even though that photograph was happening, but I was still available. And I made sure that, a lot of work that is, where my input is required, I make myself available. I'll not hide away from that.
I think that's a wonderful the kind of thought process that you have and the kind of balance that you keep between professional, because most of the times we tend to lose it at this particular point itself, that when we are out shooting, we do not even think about our work, and that is where it starts getting suffered. It starts getting neglected, and then things start really getting awry. Anyways, so there is another question that I have. There's an interesting question on YouTube, but I'll come to that a little later. Now, you do not even have a website.
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting, because I thought when I was trying to take a photography, the first thing that you should do, even before buying a camera, is have an FB page, an Instagram account, and a website. And then you go and buy which camera to look for which camera to buy. So, but
Basically, of photography.
the thought process that you have, I don't get it.
Part laziness and part luck. I had my domain shashankkhanna.com, and I had some of my early work on that. Somehow someone figured out that it is an interesting domain, and my license expired. And they took, and now they want to charge me a hefty amount to give that back. And I think I'm stuck.
Asli likh do na aage. Asli Shashank Khanna.
Why not? So I think I'll end up doing that shashankkhanna.photo and shashankkhanna.design, and I'll put up something. A lot of I'll tell you offline explorations of creating a website, different layouts I have. It's just I have not committed to it, and my social media interaction also, it's very limited to just photography. I use my Facebook profile only for my photography, and Instagram is the only place that I'm very active, because the platform in itself is very dynamic. It's working. So Facebook kind of feels little dead. Instagram feels much more alive. So I think that is how the time is spent.
All right. So have you ever thought, did it ever cross your mind that now I am ready for full time, or will it never cross?
I have many times denied it in my mind, maybe because I enjoy the design as a profession as well, and I'm very passionate about it. So I don't want to get away from that profession, because that is also a very creative profession, and the kind of work that I get to do in very meaningful ways. I get to touch millions of lives. My designs, many people are using it. It's like any day and every day, people who are using our products, I have a direct contribution. So that is a very satisfactory aspect about my job. So, I mean, in no ways I can see myself parting away from design. And photography for me is, luckily, one of the unique elements about, at least for my profession, photography wraps up into, the design overall, and as a creative profession. So for me, I think these things blend nicely. I don't really need to feel like, like photography as, a full-time profession and ditching away design, because that is as enjoyable to me as photography.
All right. Have you ever thought of creating your video tutorials on processing? And if you do, then I'm the one who's going to deposit the advance right now.
Oh, wow. Sorry, you think very highly. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think now is the point when I'm slightly getting a hang of my processing, and a better control over my process, and started feeling a bit more confident. Till say last year or last year, I was not that very confident. So many of the shots that I shared are very recent, and a lot of good body of work I feel like is about to happen, because I have some new learning. So I think I would like to practice a bit more. I would like to develop some more of my skill set, ensure that if before I'm ready to preach, I'm ready to I am myself at a confident stage, and then I'm very happy. I'm not even proudly, if not paid or anything. I don't want to destroy the professional market, but I am a very firm believer of being involved with academics. I go out as visiting faculty in many places, so I enjoy that also. I think education is important. I think it will happen. It will definitely happen. Probably not professional, but yeah.
There's one very interesting question by Rajan Datta on YouTube, and he's saying that one controversial question that can be asked. Mm-hmm. We all know that Indian landscape photographers still don't command the respect that they also deserve, along with photographers of other genres. How has your experience been as an Indian photographer in the United States, and how do photographers there get along with you?
So, brilliant question and a very interesting observation, I must say. Being here, and at least for me, the best part is I'm in Bay Area, and it is culturally extremely diverse. Right? There are people from every race and every country, and it is a very nice influx of folks. At least in this area, I have never felt isolated. The photography community that I am part of, it is a very mixed community and very open. It's not just one set of group. People shoot with each other, and anytime you are in the field, there are tons and tons of Indians. There are so many Indian faces that I do not know. I thought, being in Bay Area, maybe I'll have better connectivity with a lot of Indians, we'll know each other and whatnot, right? But there are so many new faces every time. And not just Indians, there's everyone, right? And, you will probably just share a glance, you will pass a smile, or you'll acknowledge each other's presence. But I think it is at least this area, it is very nicely mixed up, and no differences. And coming back to the other part of the question, which is the respect the Indian photographers have, many Indian photographers who do not have that international acclaim, I actually think contrary, and kind of in my mind also, I feel a little guilty when this thought comes up, because my association has been a lot about documentary style photography from India, or street style photography, the colorful holy images, and the street stuff, and the Incredible India campaigns, and a lot of advertising campaigns. Because I think growing up, most of the photography exposure that we have had through media has primarily been either studio photography or advertisement photography or street photography. There has been very less emphasis on landscape photography in general. So I think probably what needs to happen is that distribution outlet needs to get created, because of course there are incredible photographers, and the moment you talk about wildlife photography, it's the Indian photographers that come to your mind, right? It's the moment you talk about street photography, it's the Indian legends that come to your mind. And I think even with landscapes, it is happening now. Anywhere and everywhere I see best of the Indian photographers. Look at Sapna Reddy itself, right? She's such an acclaimed photographer.
I'll come to that, yeah.
Her, you see, she's pretty much the face of photographers in an international community. Manish Mamtani, all these folks, right? My friend Tarun, in Deep Space Astro community. These guys are very well known. They're very active, and they're contributing in very nice ways. So I think that gap is bridging, if there is any. Yes, I acknowledge there is some. But I think it's bridging very fast in recent years.
So if I may have to add, you're trying to be very, very kind of non-controversial in your answer. So let me add some spice to it.
Sure.
What you're trying to say here is, and if I'm wrong, please feel free to point it out.
Yeah.
That it is not about bias against an Indian, it is bias against kind of mediocrity that we let speak more louder and trying to prove our mediocre images over stunning and wonderful real arty images. And that is where this respect starts going down, and that doesn't hold true only for Indians. I think that holds true for anybody belonging to any nationality. And in the end, it is not a nationality which will always gain respect. It is an individual with his heart, with his art, that will actually speak louder than anything else. I think that is because as you rightly said, Sapna Reddy, then Manish Mamtani, then there's another wonderful fellow. What was his name? SHASHANK KHANNA. And all these guys are making us proud. All Indians proud there, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think Raja, you got the answer right?
In small sentence, we Indians and everywhere, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, definitely. I mean, Shashank, Sapna, Arpan, and then there is Manish. So these are all kind of top Indian photographers that who are kind of proving that we are catching up so fast.
Yeah, I think it is all about what you create and whether you speak or you let your work speak.
Right.
I think that is the differentiator.
That is very true, sir. Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah, right, Jasiji.
I
believe content is the king.
Pardon?
Content has to be the king any day.
Content has to be the king.
Content has to be the king any day.
Photography is not beyond. Photographer is not beyond his photography. Period.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, it's a photograph that you make.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself. Nothing else will speak.
Absolutely.
If you look at my photograph, it's not my nationality behind it. It's just my art.
So, as you said you opened the session by saying that how did you guys find me? We were not looking for Shashank Khanna. We were looking for somebody who was trying to create wonderful images. And then when we looked at the name, it was Shashank Khanna.
that is good. That is, I'm glad. Thank you.
I just want to point this as well to say. I mean, I've followed Shashank for a long time. I didn't even know we worked in the same campus. I followed him for a long time. And I think your humility, and we have been very lucky even with all the probably the A-listers, professional photographers who have come to our stage. They have been so incredibly kind and humble. Even Ted Gore came out of his business, right? Can you believe it? Just because, TJ and I were after him to come. So everybody has been very kind. So is this something that you always try to be, stay, after all the accolades that you get, do you make it like a prerogative to stay humble all through, or is it just you?
I think that's my, my upbringing as well plays a lot of part. And by nature, I am a very introvert person. I am a very shy person. So I tend to be more of a back end or a background kind of person. I'll happily organize events, then speak at events.
Right.
I organize TEDx events and whatnot. I used to do TEDx golf link parks home, by the way. I created it twice. I also got an opportunity to speak at a couple of TEDx events while back in India, but that was not the fun part, but the organizing part,
Absolutely.
behind it was something which was much more important to me. So, I think it's just my nature.
Yeah, that's something to learn a lot.
I think it was a wonderful session. We are already past our 2-hour schedule, but I think it's been a phenomenal time. We somehow, I wish we never had to stop and we had to continue looking at the images, and we could continue talking and listening to you and your wonderful thought process. But as they say, all good things should have to come to an end. If I have to sum up this session, I think which is very special, and I've been really making mental notes as well. I've been jotting down a few things as well, and it's going to be, and that's for everyone who's watching out there, who's probably will watch tomorrow as well. As the simplification is the key. So do not try and complicate things and bring that also into the image, this also into the image. It is basically start simplifying and things will start working. And second is, important take here is that don't let the equipment bog you down, because equipment is your, it should become your alter ego. It should become your alter ego, not you should become its alter ego. So it should be the other way around. And right, like you rightly said, that you find out a way of overcoming the limitations that your camera gear gets you into. So I think you manage that through your own process that you create. And then the third point, very important point that you made, is that slowing down, observing, and then creating. I think these three were the main differentiators that made this session very, very unique. And there has been a lot of learning for us also. And thank you so much, Shashank, for actually again deciding to join us on this platform and sharing your thought process. It's been an amazing experience. What do you say, guys?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So just a minute.
Thank you.
If we can all do thumbs up and smile, and I'll do the
What's the selfie?
Yes, selfie. So
Hey,
guys,
Pani.
Tanak, yeah. Everybody, yeah, smile, big smile.
Paneer.
That was a big smile.
Wonderful. And keep inspiring us, keep inspiring everybody around. And Sarita says that wonderful experience, superb images, great learning. Thanks a lot, Shashank, and all at Exploring Lights. Great job. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jesse.
Good night. Bye.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah.